So the tip today is, it's not that I don't care. I just know what to care about. We're going to start this thing all right.
Hey, so welcome to Tip on Top of the Tip. I am Zenitra Perry.
And I am INEZ Chimangariso.
So if this is your first time at the tip, we talk about candid corporate conversations, values, just things that help you in both your job and your life. So we're going to start this thing all right with the value.
Yes. So we have a set or a list of work values, and we throw them in our little randomizer, and one pops up and we talk about it. So let's throw it in there for this week. Okay. So this week's work value is inclusion. What does that mean to you?
So, and I feel like we talked a little bit about this when we talked about the value of diversity, but to me, inclusion is important. It's for me specifically, both in my corporate and professional life, my business, as well as my personal life, because I always want people to feel welcome for who they are, right? Like that is one of my highest values, is to be open and curious as opposed to judgmental, right? That's one of the reasons why, travel is also so important to me, because I think that it causes me to see the world from another person's perspective, and not just the perspective that people have given me of these places. And it also allows me to be more accepting, more welcoming, of people who don't look like me, who don't sound like me, who maybe don't believe what I believe, who maybe don't have the same sexual orientation as me, just all of the things, right? Because at the end of the day, I think that people are allowed to be who they want to be. And it's funny because it makes me think about the tip. But I need to worry about me, right? Mm-hmm. Like when it comes to judging someone else, I feel like it's something that I shouldn't be focused on, right? I shouldn't necessarily be worried about finding ways to block them from whatever they need access to, right? I need to be worried about what I'm trying to get access to. So that is why inclusion is important to me, because I just, I appreciate their input. I appreciate their point of view. And even if I don't agree, I think that's fine too. But I can still work collaboratively with people who are different than me, from a perspective of just, interest as well as appreciation. So,
Yeah. Whenever you brought up that we discussed diversity, it made me think about like, what's the difference between diversity and inclusion? And valuing diversity, I think, is a little bit external. Like, you value other people's perspective. Whenever I think about inclusion, it is me. Like, it's how I see the world. It's how I'm going to move in the world. I don't know that I can move from a place of diversity as much as I can bring diversity, or I can be accepting of it. But for inclusion, it is a perspective. It is a value. It is how I operate whenever I step into a room. And whenever we talk about diversity, we talk about all of the differences, but even within a seemingly homogenous group of people, the individuals are still different, right? Mm-hmm. So when I think about, my childhood, like the neighborhood that I grew up in, the people looked like me, but I still felt different. And I think that inclusion speaks to the value of belonging. And I think that everyone deserves a space where they feel like they belong. I feel that every space that you enter or that you choose to spend your time should be a place where you feel like you belong, where you're accepted, where you're welcomed. And so for me, inclusion is about creating spaces like that for people. I have hosted many events. I mean, back in the day, I used to host these epic game nights. And people would always be like, can I bring so-and-so? Can I bring so-and-so? And the answer was always yes. And then once they got there, I was always the one to make sure that everyone felt included, because you belong here. Like, your values, your thoughts, your perspectives, your energy, it is all welcome here, as long as it's positive, but right. It's all welcome in this space. And so I move from a place of inclusion. It's how I view leadership. Like, I want you on my team, and I'm willing to do the work to discover who you are and what your gifts are, what you're interested in, your talent, so that we can bring those to the forefront and kind of create a space for that. But inclusion is 100% my perspective and almost my gift to the world. I want to make sure that I'm creating those spaces of inclusion.
Mm-hmm. I think, when you talked about belonging, I think a lot of times some of the things in our society now that lead to people feeling depression, anxiety, just all of the hard sadness, fear, anger are tied to a lack of inclusion, right? They're tied to a lack of sense of belonging, that is created by people who want to put up a barrier. And usually, to me, when people don't value inclusion, it has something to do with them internally, right? It's like they get some value from not including other people, right? I am raising two daughters, and so one of the things that I want to teach them is the value of inclusion, because I know, especially sometimes when it comes to girls and women, there can be the idea of the mean girl syndrome, where we are in a certain group and they are not us, and so they cannot come, right? And I never want them to move like that in the world, because you never know who someone will be, right? You never know what opportunities they may come. You never know what they can bring to your life, and you never know what they're going through, right? And it could be, a small thing that you've done to them that can be a very big thing to them, and it could affect them in a really harsh and traumatic way, right? And so I think, the golden rule of do unto others as you would have them do unto you, is centers around inclusion, right? Because if you want somebody to treat you that way, and it's not from a place of like, I need to feel included, right? I don't need to feel included, because I'm gonna be up in there either way. Let's be clear. However, I want to, like you were saying, from my perspective, I want to make sure other people feel included, because it's important, because you never know what space they're in, and what type of safety you bringing inclusion to a room can create in them, both in their professional and their personal life.
There's so many ways in which society tells us that there's one way of being. And I think that that's the thing that creates this need for belonging, because society has said this is what success looks like, or this is what it means to be a woman, or this is how you get a job, or this is how you show up as a leader, as if there's only one way to do things. When we all know that there are so many different ways. We know the path that we chose to take, and sometimes we know the path of those who are close to us, and we're able to say, yes, I want to do that, or like, no, I absolutely do not want to do that. But even in that scenario, those two perspectives aren't the only two that exist in the world. When I have my conversations with my guests on Life Unlearned, that's the beauty of talking to people and truly uncovering the different ways to go about doing things. I remember one of our guests, Tia Stafford, whenever she talked about her journey into the military. It's like, in my head, I thought about high school straight to military. I had no idea that folks went to the military after they finished college. And that was her story. That was her journey, learning about, the access to the military. She had a sister who was in the military, and even just kind of seeing the posters around campus. Like, that was something that I never paid attention to. But there are so many ways to get to success. There are so many ways to live, that inclusion opens you up and allows you to learn about those other ways. It makes space to say, like, yes, that is valid. And it's not about invalidating anyone's experience by saying, well, that's not the right way, that's wrong. Instead, it's the opposite of saying, wow, there's so many different ways to live life, and it creates space for everyone to show up fully and to kind of share from that perspective of, this is the way that I did it, and you may do it a different way, but they're all valid.
Absolutely. So, y'all, make sure you lean into your inclusion, both in your professional and your personal life, please.
Yes.
Now we're gonna hop into this tip. I don't know that this tip is a long time tip, or if it's if it feels like it has always existed, but I don't know where it originated from. So the tip today is not that I don't care, I just know what to care about. Now, I got this, of course, from Z, right? Because usually the tips come from whatever we're talking about, and something that she says. And she said it recently. I was like, that's a tip for sure. Now, I don't know if you know where you got that from, or if you just made that up.
I have no idea. I think this is the first time on top of the tip where I have no idea where the tip came
wow.
from. You're right. It was a recent story. I mean, like in the last 6 months, where this came about, but I can't even tell you like where it came from. But to your point, it's definitely something that we've always had kind of in our world. Like there's so many things that you can care about. And even when it comes to certain people, it could be family, it could be partners, it could be friends. And sometimes you have to say, it's not that I don't care, it's just that I know what to care about. And this is all about prioritization. You got to get your priorities in order, and everyone's urgency doesn't have to fall on your plate. And I think that in this season, how it's even showing up for me currently is learning when to say no. And that is not something that is easy for me. Inez, I don't think it's easy for you either. We both love giving, right? And if someone reaches out to us like, hey, can you do this? And it's like, yeah, why not? Like, I can definitely do it. However, in this season of entrepreneurship, in this season of parenting, single parenting for me, I can't say yes to everything. And even where there are things that I do care about, like I can't in that moment. It's not a priority. There are other things that have to come to the forefront of my list. So for me, it's all about this is when I got to say no. And I'm not saying that I don't care, but I have to know what to care about in this moment. What is a priority? What is urgent? Knowing how to kind of stack rank those things and be able to say, yo, the list is closed. We're not letting anybody else in the club. Y'all can't you can't get in this moment. Not saying that it's forever. No, because again, it's not that I don't care about what you're asking me about, but like right now, I don't have the capacity to be able to add more to my plate. So for me, it's all about prioritization. It's all about saying no and being okay with it.
Yes. Listen, capacity. We're gonna talk about capacity, y'all. We have an accountability call, but we also have like a co-working session that we do, myself and Zenitra and some of my friends. And one of the things we talk about is the amount of work and admin that is required just to adult, like just to be a grown person. There is so many things that you have to quote unquote worry about, right? And so that's just a human being, adult. Then you add on the titles, right? So if you're in this organization, or you're married to this person, or you're a mother, or you have an older adult you're taking care of, it just adds up. And we only have but so much mental capacity, right? That's on top of the actual physical, like the time that we have in the day, right? And so when I think about, it's not that I don't care, but I know what to care about. I think about really getting clear on what is your capacity, because especially in the era that we live in today, everything is set up to distract you from what you need to be doing, what you have to do, what you need to do, and what you want to do, right? Everything is set up to distract you. And so if you're not clear on what you do need to actually care about, you will always feel overwhelmed and out of control all the time. Like one of the things that I will say that you were saying earlier, like, it's hard for you to say no. I don't feel like it's hard for me to say no. Like, I feel like that comes from me being a only child for a lot of my life. Like, and so, I know I have friends who, even before motherhood, were a bit self-sacrificial, especially when it comes to family and friendships. And right, you have to be a real close person to me for me to be like, okay, I'm gonna go out of my way, I'm gonna care about something I don't really care about for you. And I think that it protects me from running out of capacity. Now, the area that I think I had to learn how to do that in is motherhood, right? Because we are taught that if we have any capacity, we need to give that capacity to our children, right? Just don't give it on up to them. However, you also can get in a space of being overwhelmed and burnt out in that space too, if you don't think about what you should care about, right? Because there's so many things to care about there too. So yeah, like I love this saying. Even like when I think about like the news and what's going on in the world, like baby, I don't. It's not that I don't care, but I surely know what to care about, and I'm not watching not a near show. I don't, because I know it's genocide and suicide and death and just all these things happening. I know, people getting kidnapped. I know these things are happening. However, I have to conserve my mental capacity and my spirit, right? And be able to care about, again, the baseline adult things that I have, and then all of the roles that sit on top of that and the things that come with that. So I think it's a really great mentality to have, in order to preserve your capacity.
Yeah, you brought up the news piece, and everything is important on the news, right? They want you to believe that everything is important, and everything not only requires your acknowledgement, but your attention and your activity. Like you have to do something about everything, and everything can't be important, right? You really do have to be able to narrow down what are the important things in your life and how are you going to take care of those. And understand that we all play a part, right? There'll be certain things that I'm like, this is something that I'm truly passionate about, and it's going to be on the top of my list, but it may not be on your list, and that's okay, because guess what? There's something else that's on your list that you think is really important, that you try to contribute to and make an impact. But whenever when you're talking about me not being able to say no, I realized that saying yes has been my social strategy. For example, if you invite me out, I'm coming. Answer is always yes. Like, can you come? Yes. Now, I didn't realize until, later in my adult life that everyone didn't operate that way. And it's interesting because it has helped to develop some really solid friendships, because I would show up to places because I was invited. And when they look to the friends, it would be me. Like, I'm like, oh, wait, I'm the friend that's here? Like, I thought I was just one of the people that were
Where am
invited.
I at?
But based off of me showing up when people extend an invitation to me, it kind of bumped me up in kind of the friendship ranking in certain people's lives. And it really has helped to forge some like solid relationships. And it's all good until, to your point, your adulting, your own personal titles, all of those things begin to add up, and you can't say yes to as many people anymore. Right. And it's not that I don't care about these people. I just know what to care about. And my list of things in my life that I need to care about is getting longer and longer. And we talk about how you can't parent real time, and how there's a level of preparation and pre-work that needs to be done as it relates to parenting, because it is so unpredictable. And you have to make space for the spontaneity that is, oh, my child has a major toothache and I need to go to the dentist like tomorrow. Like, right? Like, and that now that shifts things in my schedule. But you have to have boundaries. And I think prior to this phase of my life, I just had a lot more free space. So it was okay to say yes to certain things. And I could still make time. Like if the day was empty on the calendar, then to me, it was open and I could say yes. But now I know that I literally have to block off. I'm not doing anything this day. Like,
Right.
and if someone reaches out to me, I literally have to be able to say no, because even though nothing's on the calendar, I need that space to catch up on things that fell behind, to get ahead on things that's coming up. But before I didn't need that. I didn't need that amount of space. So you kind of go through these different phases of your life where there may be times where you can't care about everything. You have to know what it is that you can care about, or what you should care about, because otherwise you drive yourself crazy. You're going to be burnt out. We talk about burnout from jobs, but you can be burnt out from your life because you're doing too much. You got to learn how to sit down. You got to learn what to care about, because everything can't be important.
This is the truth. Like I was thinking about the part of, it's not that I don't care, right? And I think sometimes it's important to be open and transparent with people about that piece, right? Because to your point, some things are important, more important to others than they are to you. And so, for instance, like I am the birthday person. Like, honey, I love my birthday. Okay. Like, I'm going to celebrate. I'm going to have a party. I'm going to do something happening. Okay. Now, I'm not the person who like you always have to be at my birthday event. However, if you are a close friend to me and I don't hear from you on my birthday, I'm gonna feel some type of way, right? So if you are my friend and you know that you the type of friend who forgets birthdays, it's one or two things that need to happen. One, you you need either to communicate like, girl, listen, I love you, right? However, I'm forgetful. Don't think this. I absolutely, we here, right? Or you need to make sure that you find a way to prioritize remembering just so you can call me for my birthday because it's important to me, right?
Right.
Now, and by communicating the first part, I mean communicating is not that I don't care, right? Like, but this is just something that I'm not good at, right? So I think the communication piece is important, especially in relationships with other people, especially in close relationship with other people, so that the things that you do care about, right? Maybe you care about the relationship, but you're not a huge birthday person, right? So you're still able to maintain the relationship, right? Even though that's not your thing. And I think vice versa too, right? In relationships, being able to communicate like this is something that is very important to me so that other people can either decide if they want to show up in that space or not, right? Because for instance, you were talking about how you will show up and you're not even the close friend and you the friend there, you like, well, what a close friend is that? And so now you have been elevated in friendship because apparently to this person, this was important to show up at, right? So being able to communicate on both sides, I think is really important, especially at this stage of life in adulthood, because everybody got a lot of things going on, right? And there may be things that are important to you that people don't show up for or people don't acknowledge, and it's not because they don't care. It is because they're caring about the things that are most important to them right now, but it's also because they don't know how much you care about it.
Right. And that shows up in work too, right? I was recently doing a disc facilitation with this audience, with this group, and one of the biggest light bulbs was understanding what's important to the different types. And so, one person's like, I need all of the information, and the other person's like, you're slowing us down. But it's like, oh, but you value knowing details before you can make the next step. I value progress. We both want to move forward, but we need to figure out how we can communicate with each other to make sure that both of those things that are urgent both of those needs are being met so that we can then move forward, right? So I know we call ourselves your confidence queens, but we're also your communication queens. It is all about the communication. You have to be able to talk about not only what you need, but the why, or what you're lacking and the why, so that you can preserve those relationships. Because a lot of times you guys have the same objectives or the same goals, but if you aren't communicating kind of your process of how you got there, going back to the place of inclusion, right? We're all going to get there differently. We all want to move forward. We all want to win. We all want to see the results, but the process in which each one of us takes to get there can be different. But if you communicate those things, it can help to kind of reduce the friction and tension and misunderstandings.
Absolutely. So I'd be interested to know from you all's perspective, like, what are some of the things that you have deprioritized, right? What are some of the things that at this stage in your life, it's not that you don't care about them, but because you know what to care about, you've had to like take them off your plates, move them to the side, and deprioritize them.
Yes. So thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you guys here again in 2 weeks with your next tip on top of the tip.
Yes. Bye.